my love, love, love. She bruises calls.
Thanks, Andrea. I wanted to begin today, as is customary in Australia, by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I am on today in Australia, which are the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I'd like to recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. My name is Alice Mahar, and alongside a group of other incredible people, I run the Corner Store Network, which is a non-profit organisation operating in Australia and Timor Leste. The Corner Store Network works towards increased food security, improved nutrition, climate resilient communities, transparent and direct trade, employment opportunities for women and girls, and minimising food waste. Our mission is to preserve the future for generations to come and leave no one behind along the way. I think it's also important to acknowledge that whilst we are discussing island sustainability and island wisdom, it is not lost on me that I live on an island in this region that is one of the wealthiest nations globally and has one of the highest per capita emissions of carbon dioxide in the world. Meanwhile, I work with communities in Timor Leste on that island that has one of the highest rates of poverty globally and one of the lowest per capita emissions. I bring this up because if we are to find the solutions required to meet the United Nations SDGs, the conversation calls for an honest assessment of the roles that we all play, particularly those of us that live comfortably and with privilege in developed nations, understanding that much of that privilege comes at the expense of others and many in our Asia Pacific region. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the work I'm involved in. The Corner Store Network is a little bit like a tree. It's our central organisation that we run 3 initiatives from, and like branches of the tree, they're all interconnected. Each branch is at a different stage of life, and at the same time, they're independent and dependent on each other. And each one of these 3 initiatives is connected by one of our 3 guiding principles: economic, environmental, and food justice. So firstly, economic justice. Through With One Bean Coffee, we work directly with coffee farmers in Timor Leste. Coffee farmers are some of the poorest paid farmers in the world, and as residents of the self-proclaimed coffee capital of Australia, we wanted to make sure that there was a coffee on the market that looked after the people that grow it and the environment that it grows in. We know that with less income, coffee growers are unable to reinvest in their farms, which leads to further reductions in productions and sales and income. Produce like coffee, cacao and vanilla, they all have these similar threads. They're grown in similar tropical climates. They are labour intensive to grow. They're manually harvested and processed. They're expensive products by the time they hit the supermarket shelves. They make a really great profit for distributors and the middle people. But with roughly 80% of coffee farmers globally earning less than $2 per day, that model is clearly broken. So we have opted for a different model, one that goes directly to the farmers and cuts out middle people. We found the only Timorese-run cooperative to partner with, and we started importing green coffee to roast in Melbourne, launching a specialty coffee sourced, roasted and distributed to the highest ethical and environmental standards that we possibly could. This has meant ensuring more money staying at source with the 680 strong farming cooperative, offsetting for carbon neutrality where we have to, packaging that is 100% compostable or reusable, and using technology that eliminates all emissions from the roasting process. In 6 years, we've roasted close to 80 tonne of coffee, planted a tree for every kilo roasted, and returned roughly $850,000 into that local economy. By building a very short but long-term supply chain and paying fairly at every link, we're investing in those who do the hard work. For example, most farmers get paid one instalment every 9 to 12 months, depending on the season. We pay 3 times, 50% upfront, 25% on shipment, and the last 25% on delivery. Much of the world couldn't function without their morning caffeine hit, but that shouldn't come at the high cost of others that it currently does. With One Bean is about proving that a social model can work, that you can produce to the highest quality without sacrificing people and planet along the way. So secondly, environmental justice. Through With One Seed, the first gold standard verified carbon forestry program in Timor-Leste. Primary and secondary forest cover in Timor-Leste has been in decline since about 1975. By 2015, areas of primary forests had dropped to about 46%, and today the forests continue to decline at nearly 1.6% a year. Globally, deforestation is causing both poverty and environmental degradation, and as the world heads for more than 2 degrees of warming before 2050, the situation is going to get much worse, with island communities particularly vulnerable. Our approach is simple in its theory and application. We're planting trees and we're planting ideas. Innovation comes from the annual incentive payments made to smallholder subsistence farmers who plant, manage and maintain the forest trees on their land, paid to them from the sale of carbon credits into the international carbon market. If a subsistence farmer has to choose between planting a cash crop or planting trees that may take 20 years to provide a financial return, the choice is obvious. However, by starting to make a cash crop from trees that sequester carbon, we've begun to change that conversation. The With One Seed model has over 990 farmers engaged, over 215,000 trees under management, has removed over 81,000 tonne of CO2 emissions from the global atmosphere, sold more than 25,000 carbon credits internationally, and paid over $300,000 into village economies since 2010. An ever-evolving program, With One Seed has now developed a first-of-its-kind smartphone app being used to manage and monitor smallholder tree farming initiatives. This app, Tree02, greatly increases the speed, accuracy, effectiveness and transparency of cataloguing trees and calculating the carbon stored in the forest by linking RFID chips and GPS locations, which can be scanned on handheld devices with real-time data accessible remotely, a game changer for community forestry around the world. With One Seed implements strategies to restore landscapes to a sustainable position, maintain them on an ongoing basis and achieve outcomes such as food security, improved water supply and creation of employment. Reforestation activities, as shown by the With One Seed forestry program, are having significant benefits in the rural community. We've seen significantly reduced soil erosion, fresh water springs returning and increased incomes for local communities. And finally, food justice. Through Cornerstore Foods, our newest program that preserves excess food produced in abundant seasons for communities to have access to food in hungry seasons. We conceptualised this program as a way to save some of the 1/3 of food currently wasted globally each year and turn it into high quality preserved food that could last without refrigeration for another 12 months, then sell it and reinvest the profits to replicate the model all throughout communities in Australia, Timor-Leste and globally, giving communities food sovereignty and food security dependent on them and not on circumstance around them. A model designed to return to local production for local consumption, feed your own community and reduce reliance of external imports. The model runs from repurposed shipping containers fitted with commercial grade kitchens and food preservation equipment. Farmers bring their excess and receive a fair price for it. Women are trained in food preservation techniques, run the hubs, and preserve the produce through methods of drying, bottling, pickling and fermenting. The produce is stored and sold year-round at an affordable price to the local community with profits reinvested into the hub to increase local production capacity and increase employment. This model operates the same way in both Australia and Timor-Leste, designed to cross borders as no nation is immune from a decreasing supply and increasing cost of imported food. We're creating practical solutions to food security and taking real action to ensure that every person globally has secure and safe access. We're addressing the increasing global food security challenge of feeding a growing population using less land, water, inputs and other declining resources to improve diets through better access to nutritious foods, higher incomes and the empowerment of women. So at the Cornerstone Network, we're committed to developing local management capacity and accountability and ensuring local control of all the programs wherever appropriate, empowering communities to self-determine their own futures. One of the most dangerous assumptions we've found to make in communities that are not our own is that we need to know what they need. They know, they just need the opportunities to make it happen. Coffee, planting trees and preserving food, or economic, environmental and food justice. And whilst we are simply roasting coffee and planting trees and making preserves, we're actually building a movement of people willing to invest with equality in everything they do and a network of communities taking control for themselves. None of our programs are about charity and aid. We provide opportunities for people to make an earned dollar, leading to self-determination for themselves and their communities, and decolonising Western constructs of economies, production, trade and consumption. We believe in the power of communities to solve problems from a ground-up approach. We fundamentally believe in social justice and equality, a livable income, access to food and water, education, healthcare, and self-determination for everyone. And we believe that it's through the simple actions by many people that we will see the biggest impacts. Thank you.
Do you know where the wild things go? They go on undertake your need. Bring down our sleep, build a breakfast, now let's eat my love, love, love.